Hello students, today we'll continue with the second part of the lesson, deep water. We were at the point when a big bruiser of boy had thrown William Douglas into the swimming pool that was YMCA. So William Douglas, who had started learning how to swim and he had gone only one or two times there to learn how to swim, and he was learning just by copying the others. So one day, when he was alone and no one was there, he was waiting for someone to come there so that he could learn swimming. But he was waiting, and one big and strong boy came there and he asked him that how would you like to be ducked? And without any reply, he had thrown him into the deep end of the water. And at that time, William Douglas was landing there in sitting position. He swallowed water and went at once to the bottom. He was frightened, but he was not out of his wits. On the way down, as he was going, he also planned that whenever his feet would touch the bottom, he would make a big jump and come to the surface, lie flat, paddle to the edge of the pool, and be safe. So that was his strategy, that was his planning, that whenever he would touch the bottom, he would come out of the water. But what really had happened? We are going to start from the point, this one, it seemed a long way down. So while he was going down, it was a long way. It means it was not in a very hurried way, in only a few seconds that he had touched the bottom, but it was looking like a long way because he was struggling there. He had swallowed water already, and for him, those 9 feet were more like 90. And before, he is telling, I touched the bottom, my lungs were ready to burst. And before that, he would touch the bottom of the pool, his lungs were ready to burst. He was not breathing properly because lungs were full of water, because as he had swallowed water. But then my feet hit the bottom, and he is saying that as his feet hit the bottom, I summoned all my strength. That he is saying he collected all his strength and made what I thought was a great spring upwards. And he had already thought that he would make a big jump towards upwards. So he had also made the same spring or jump upwards. Now he is saying, I imagined I would bob to the surface like a cock. If you have seen a cork, the cork that is put on a bottle, and as you threw it, it jumps on the floor. So in the same way, he was also thinking that he would also make such a jump. When he would touch the bottom and try to jump, he would jump like a cork or bob like a cork to the surface. Instead, I came up slowly, but it didn't happen, and he came up slowly. It means the jump didn't make any difference, and as a natural, one came upwards into the water. In the same way, he was also coming up in the water. Next, he is saying, I opened my eyes. He opened his eyes and saw nothing, and he couldn't see anything because when he opened his eyes, in front of the eyes there was only water, and one can't see clearly through the water. Next, but water that had a dirty yellow ting in it. And next he is saying that he could only see water, and only water, and also the dirty yellow ting or yellow color. Ting means color. So he was only watching there water and water, because when you are watching from the upper side into water, that seemed very clean, but when you are watching water from inside, it can't be clear. So it had a dirty yellow thing in it. I grew panicky, and he was only totally frightened. He grew panicky, or he was frightened. I reached up as if to grab a rope, and he reached. He tried to grab or to catch any rope that could be there so that he could save himself as soon as possible. And my hands clutched only water, but he is saying that his hands only clutched water. Nothing was there, only he could clutch water. I was forgetting, and now he is saying that he was forgetting, means choked. He was not breathing properly. His throat choked. I tried to yell, and he's also saying he tried to yell or cry, but no sound came out, but not a single sound was coming out of his throat. Then my eyes and nose came out of the water. Then he is saying slowly, slowly he was moving upwards, and at least his eyes and nose came out of the water. But not my mouth, but he couldn't come out of water. His mouth couldn't come out of water. What happened next? I flailed at the surface. He tried in vain at the surface out of the water. Swallowed, but he swallowed water and choked, and once again his throat choked because he had taken more water into the mouth. Next he is saying, I tried to bring my legs up. He also tried to bring his legs up, but they hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. And it seemed that for him that the legs were totally paralyzed, and they were also rigid or stiff. They become paralyzed. Paralyzed, the part of body that doesn't work. Rigid, stiff. A great force was pulling me under, and he was thinking that a great force, like the force of electricity, that was pulling him underwater. I screamed, he cried or steamed, but only the water harmed me. But he is saying only water harmed him. Nothing else happened. And he is saying I had started on the long journey back to the bottom of the pool. Once again he was saying long journey. Why is he saying that that was a long journey? Because he had already gone, and in the first journey he was thinking that those 9 feet were like 90. So once again that's why he is saying that was a long journey, because when he was going at the surface he was going very slowly and slowly. Next he is saying I struck at the water, he strikes with water. As he is going down he is only striking with water. As I went down, expending my strength as in a nightmare. What is nightmare? That is bad dreams. What type of bad dreams you are taking? So as one take nightmare fights, an irresistible force, and in nightmare fights, when someone is having bad dreams, and in that he also fights with the ghost or anything else that is bad. So he was also making such strength, expending his such strength, that was an irresistible force. It means that can't be resisted. So he was trying every point of his strength, but he couldn't do anything. That was the point. Next, I had lost all my breath. Now he already he was saying that he was not taking proper breath. His throat was choked. Now he is saying that he had lost all his breath. My lungs ached. His lungs were aching. They were giving pain to him. My head throbbed, and his head was also throbbing. Next, so his head was throbbing or pounding. Next he is saying that his head was throbbing or pounding. I was getting dizzy, and he is also saying that he was getting dizzy. It means he was not feeling good, and it seems that he was going to giddy, चक्कर आना, सिर धड़कना, सिर जोर जोर से पाउंड करना और थ्रोबिंग करना. Such type of case was with him. But I remembered the strategy. But he is saying that he remembered the strategy or the planning that he had already done when first he was going to the bottom. So in the same way he was also having this remembered the same strategy. He is saying I would spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cork to the surface. That in the same way as he had already planned, that whenever he would touch the bottom he would make a big jump and would come out of the water like a cork to the surface. And he's saying I would lie flat, and after that he would also lie flat on the water, strike out with my arms, and also strike out with arms in water, and thrust with my legs, and he would also move with his legs, and then I would get to the edge of the pool and be safe. So that was his strategy, that by thrashing with the legs and by striking with the hands, he would come to the edge of the pool. That was his strategy, and he would be safe. So even then, that his breath was shocked, he was not breathing, his head was throbbing, and even he was becoming dizzy or giddy. Even then, he was only thinking that he would be safe by making a big jump from the bottom. Next, he is saying, I went down endlessly. Those 9 feet were looking like a 90. Once again, he was going slowly and slowly. And he is saying, on the way, I opened my eyes. On the way, he also opened his eyes, nothing but water with yellow glow, yellow ting. Once again, as he was coming up first time, then he also opened his eyes and saw nothing but yellow ting of water. In the same way, while he is going second time down, he was also watching the yellow ting, dark water that one could not see through, and that seemed a type of dark water one can't see through the water. And then seer. And after that, he is saying there was a seer, strange, stark terror, a complete terror seized me, seized him. So a type of strange terror that he can't understand that what type of a terror that was that seized him. Terror that knows no understanding. In the very next, he is saying that type of a terror that knows no understanding. He doesn't know any understanding about the terror he was experiencing at that time, because he had never experienced that before that. Terror that knows no control, and such type of terror that he has no control over that terror. That no one can understand who has not experienced, because such type of a terror can't be experienced by anyone who has not can't be understood by such person who had not experienced it earlier. Suppose you have not you have not such an experience before that, you can't tell that what type of fear a drowning man experience. So he also doesn't know about that. I was sinking underwater. He is saying that he was sinking underwater. Next, he is saying, I was paralyzed underwater. That he was also paralyzed. His body was not working, stiff, rigid with fear, and he was totally stiff and also become hard with fear. He was totally stiff and become hard with fear. Even the screams in my throat were frozen, and he is also telling that his screams or the cries in his throat were also frozen. There was no sound coming out of his throat, totally choked. Only my heart, only he is saying that his heart and pounding in my head. It means there was pounding or throbbing in his heart as well as in his head. That was telling that I was still alive, he was still alive. सिर के अंदर धड़कन है या दिल के अंदर धड़कन है, that was telling only him that he was still alive and he is not died. So it means his mind was working and his heart was working, otherwise the whole parts of the body were not working. Next he is telling, and then in the midst of the terror, so he was, you can say, seized in different type of terrors. His head is throbbing, his lungs were aching, his legs were paralyzed, his body was not working. So in the midst of all this terror, and he was seized in such type of a terror that he can't even understand. So in midst of all these things came a touch of reason, and suddenly came a touch of reason. So what is touch of reason? Sometime a question asked that what is touch of reason in the midst of a terror? Because he had already planned. So there was a part of that plan that whenever he would touch the bottom, he would make a big jump. So that was the touch of reason. I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. That he had to remember that whenever he would touch the bottom, he would have to make a big jump. At last I felt the tiles under me, and at last he felt that he had tiles under his feet. My toes reached out as if to grab them, and it seemed to him that his toes are going to grab or catch the bottom. At the same time, I jumped with everything I had. So, at the same time, he jumped whatever was with him. It means he had tried with all his strength. What happened? He is saying, but the jump made no difference. There was no difference. It means nothing happened at the first effort, nothing happened in the second effort, also nothing happened. The water was still around me. There was water. It means he didn't come at the surface as he was thinking, as his strategy was. I looked for ropes. Next, he is saying that he tried to grab the ropes, ladders, water wings, whatever the opportunity he could take. He tried for everything. Nothing but water, but nothing happened. Only water, and water was everywhere. A mass of yellow water held me, and as he was already saying, there was only yellow and dirty water around him, and the mass, because everywhere water and water was there, so a collective force of water was holding him. A stark terror took an even deeper hold of me, a strange type of terror, a complete terror that took an even deeper hold on him, like a great charge of electricity. In the same way as great charge of electricity caught someone, in the same way he was also caught in the fear or the terror, the strange fear of water that he can't even understand. I shook and trembled with fright. He is saying that he was shaking himself. He shook and trembled. कांपता रहा, हिलता रहा एकदम से डर के मारे. I shook and trembled. You can imagine the fear he was, but even you can't imagine because you have not experienced. He's saying my arms wouldn't move, that his arms were not moving. My legs wouldn't move, his legs were also not moving. As he was already saying that every part of his body was paralyzed. So that's why his body parts were not moving. I tried to call for help, and he's saying that I was calling for help, that someone could help him, as the big brother boy was also there. Might he came and help him to call for mother, and always when person is in any type of pain, he asks for mother also. So he was also calling his mother, but nothing happened. No one heard because the sound was not coming out of the water. Only you can say bubbles were coming out of the water. So that was the case. Next, what happened? And then strangely, there was light. Once again, there was light. So what type of light that was? Might be that was the light. It means his nose and mouth, and eyes once again came out. That was the light of sun. I was coming out of the awful yellow water, and he was coming out of the awful, because that was for that moment that was a terrible one for him. So he was feeling that was awful or terrible, fear-making water. At least my eyes were, and he is saying that at least his eyes came out of the water. My nose was almost out too, and he's also adding that his nose was also out of water. Next, he's saying, then I started down a third time, and he also started down a third time. He was going third time. I sucked for air. He once again tried to take air in, to breathe oxygen in, but only he got water. Once again, he swallowed water. The yellowish light was going out, and he is going third time down, and the yellowish or the sunlight was going out. It means he couldn't do anything, as he was already saying that the first time he came out of water, he tried with his legs and hands, but nothing happened at that time. So now he's going once again, third time he's drowning, and he's saying that then all effort ceased. Ceased means stopped, finished. That he had tried two times, and now because his body was not working, his legs were not working, so all effort ceased or stopped or finished. I relaxed. He only got relaxed. Even my legs felt limp because his legs were feeling a limpness or lifeless, without life. And a blackness swept over my brain, and it seemed that even as he was already telling that his brain or mind or the head was throbbing, and at that particular moment he was also feeling a blackness over his brain or mind. It wiped out fear, and due to that, any type of fear was also wiped out. There was no fear. It wiped out a terror. Also, there was no terror because now he was totally relaxed. Actually, he was going to be unconscious, and that's why he is saying there was no more panic. When a person becomes unconscious, there is no fear of anything. Also, you can imagine when you got sleepy and you are going to relax at that time, also there is no fear, even not no fear of exam or anything else. It was quiet and peaceful. And while he was going to become unconscious, at that time there was totally peace and calmness. Nothing to be afraid of, and this time there was no fear. He was not afraid of anything. This is nice to be drowsy, and while he was becoming sleepy or drowsy, that was so nice to feel. To go to sleep, no need to jump, and this time there was no need to jump because there was no strategy, as he was already saying, all efforts are ceased. Too tired to jump, and he was totally tired to jump. He had already jumped two times, but nothing happened. So it's nice to be carried gently. And as he was going down third time, that was very nice because now his mind was not working and a blackness was sweeping over it to float along in space, and it seemed for him that he was just floating or moving in the air in the space without any restriction. Tender arms around me, and he's also feeling like that the tender or the soft arms of mother is around him. He is just in the arms of his mother, tender arms like mother's. Now I must go to sleep, and he was feeling like that he is going to sleep now. He is going to unconscious now. I crossed to oblivion, and he was also saying that it seemed for him that he had also crossed the oblivion, the point where a person forgets everything. So he is going to die, it seems for him, and the curtain of life fell, and for him, it seemed that his life's curtain has fallen, or he is going to die. So that's the end of the second part. We will continue in the third part.